The year was 2143, and the world woke in silence as if the planet itself had forgotten to breathe, because above every city from New York to Tokyo, from London to Sydney, the sky had been swallowed by shadows of thousands of alien warships so huge that sunlight broke around them in fractured beams, and the people who saw them felt their hearts slow with the heavy, cold weight of something they had only known from movies and nightmares, but now was real and unstoppable. Every device, every screen, every broadcast flickered to static and then cleared to reveal a face that was not a face at all, a mass of glistening black shapes like moving glass eyes that shone like frozen fire, and a voice deep and without emotion filled every home, every street, every ear, saying Earth will kneel or be erased. And the voice was so calm that it was worse than anger, because anger is human, but this was something older, colder. Daniel Cross stood on the observation deck of Fort Orion, a high-security military command base hidden in the Nevada desert, and as the voice faded into the hum of the alien fleet, he felt the weight of every battle he had fought pressing into his chest because he had been a soldier in 2 wars and a survivor of the Titan conflict, and had faced death on burning fields under falling skies, but never like this, never with the whole of Earth under one shadow. Daniel remembered the invasion drills the government ran for the public over the years, but this was nothing like the clean, bright propaganda videos. This was thick, choking fear, the kind that made even trained soldiers freeze and stare, and as his hands tightened on the railing, his eyes caught movement at the edge of the horizon, a shape far larger than the ships, closer than the stars, something moving slowly like a beast waiting its turn. The alien fleet was not firing no bombs, no beams, no burning streets. They just hovered and waited. And Daniel could not decide if that was worse, because at least an attack you could fight back against. But this stillness felt like a hand on the back of the neck holding the world down. He turned to the command console as dozens of feeds lit up with messages from across the planet. Cities reporting panic evacuations. Chaos in the streets as people tried to flee to underground shelters. The president's voice broke over the secure line, demanding a status update, and Daniel heard in her tone the same thing he felt, the same question they all had. Why are they waiting? A young technician shouted that they had broken into the alien communications net, only fragments, only pieces, but enough to know the fleet was not alone, not the only danger, and Daniel's mind flashed back to the shadow moving behind them. And for a moment he thought he saw it again, through the high-power scope, a dark curve sliding across the starlight like the edge of a planet, but moving wrong, moving with purpose, as if hunting the alien fleet itself. Static burst over the speakers, and a voice that was not the broadcast voice, not the leader's voice, but something weaker, almost whispering, came through. And though the words were in no language, Daniel knew somehow he understood them. You think we came for you, but we came to stop something worse, and then the line went dead, leaving the room in a silence sharper than any explosion. Daniel felt a pulse of heat in his chest. That was not fear, but something closer to a terrible understanding that whatever that shadow was, it was coming for Earth next, and that the armada above them was not here just to conquer, but to stand between humanity and something they could not imagine. He looked again at the alien ships, their hulls shimmering with strange energy fields, and, for the first time, he noticed how they were positioned, not pointed at Earth, but outward toward the blackness beyond, as though preparing to block it. The thought chilled him more than the threat of slavery. Because if these invaders feared what was coming, then it had to be worse than all the wars humanity had ever fought put together. Yet even as the shadow shifted closer, even as alarms rang in the command room, Daniel knew the alien armada still had no intention of asking for help. They would rather chain the human race and use it as a weapon than fight beside it. And that was something he would never accept, because Daniel Cross had fought all his life for the right of humanity to choose its own path. And if the future meant fighting, two enemies at once, one above their skies and one moving through the darkness beyond, then so be it. He would face them both, and he would make sure Earth stood free, no matter the cost, and as the deck shook under the first low hum of alien engines. Powering up, Daniel raised his head and stared at the vast shadow breaking through the edge of space, wondering if anyone in that moment truly understood how small the world really was. Daniel did not sleep that night because the sky never dimmed. The alien ships stayed above every city like silent mountains, their edges glowing with cold light, and their presence pressing down on the earth like a weight that made every breath harder. The news feeds still worked, but they showed only the same. Repeated footage from earlier people running in the streets, hiding in parking garages, praying in subway tunnels, while the broadcast from the alien leader replayed again and again. Earth will kneel or be erased, but Daniel could not shake the whisper. He had heard you think we came for you, but we came to stop something worse. It rolled in his mind like thunder, too far away to hear clearly, but close enough to feel in the bones. The command base was flooded with intercepted alien transmissions, some in fragments, some only seconds long, and the tech teams worked without pause to decode them, each word like a shard of a larger truth. The first pieces they cracked told a story no human had heard before about a council of alien worlds older than Earth itself, united in their fear of humans, not because of what humanity was, but because of what humanity might become: adaptable, relentless, unpredictable. The only species that had survived every war and still built higher and faster after. Each one in the records of the Alien Council. Humans were marked as a threat not yet ready to challenge the stars, but inevitable if left to grow. So they had planned to come early to crush the possibility before it was born. But something had gone wrong with that plan. Daniel saw it in the stress patterns of their fleet formations. These were not the lines of a conqueror, confident in victory. These were the walls of an army holding position, guarding, not attacking. And when one of the analysts showed him the long-range scans of the shadow moving behind the fleet, Daniel understood it was bigger than anything in the alien fleet by a measure of thousands. It moved not like a ship, but like a living thing, its surface rippling with slow waves of light and dark, its motion deliberate like a predator, conserving energy until the strike. They gave it a name in the command base, the Devourer, because that was what the alien prisoners called it when they broke under, questioning their voices, trembling as they described how it had swallowed entire worlds, not with fire or bombs, but by breaking them apart and absorbing every piece until nothing was left but dead rock. One prisoner from a species called the Charan said his homeworld had been green and blue like Earth, until the Devourer came and turned the oceans to steam, the forests to ash, the cities to dust. And he said that when the Devourer finished, it did not move on immediately. It waited. It lingered, as if listening to see if anything was left alive, and only when it was sure it had taken everything did it drift away to find the next world. The alien fleet above Earth was not here to save humanity. They were here to save themselves from the Devourer. But they did not trust humans enough to fight beside them, so they had planned to enslave the planet, arm its people with alien weapons, and drive them into battle as disposable soldiers. Daniel felt the burn of that truth like acid in his chest, because it meant the choice ahead was no longer simple. It was not just resist or submit. Now it was resist the fleet and face the Devourer alone, or submit and fight a war that might save the galaxy but kill the spirit of humanity forever and in the dark hours. Before dawn, as the hum of alien engines echoed faintly in the sky above the base, Daniel knew neither option was enough. There had to be another path, one that would keep Earth free and still face the thing coming through the black. He stood on the roof of the command tower, looking out toward the horizon, where the shadow was growing larger each hour, and wondered if anyone on either side truly understood how little time they had left, because when he looked at the alien fleet now, he did not. see an enemy and he did not see an ally. He saw a wall of fear and desperation, and he knew that walls eventually break. The shadow was no longer a distant smear against the stars. It had shape now, and movement, a slow, deliberate turning, as if it were adjusting its gaze toward Earth. The alien fleet shifted formation, the massive ships rotating and locking into a defensive wall that stretched like an iron ring across the black. The command base picked up an energy surge rippling out from the shadow, and Daniel felt the deck under his boots hum with the echo of something too big to comprehend. The analysts confirmed. What his gut already knew, this thing was alive and older than any star in the charts. Its size beyond scale, its surface. A blend of flesh and machine, like a planet, had been carved open and rebuilt into a weapon. The prisoners called it the Devourer, but even that name felt too small for something that could consume entire worlds in hours. It moved without haste because it did not need to hurry. Nothing could run from it. Nothing could hide from it. The alien transmissions painted a history in fragments. The Devourer had been built eons ago by a race that no longer existed. Its purpose to cleanse the galaxy of civilizations that grew too powerful too fast. Some called it a failsafe, others a punishment. No one knew what had destroyed its creators. But the Devourer kept following its programming, an endless cycle of finding, consuming and moving on it, had destroyed at least 3 homeworlds of the species, now orbiting Earth in the Coalition fleet, each time leaving behind nothing. But silence and ruin. The aliens had tracked it across hundreds of light years, desperate to find a way to stop it before their own worlds were taken. The humans were supposed to be a weapon in that fight, but as Daniel listened to the translated records, he realized there was more. The Devourer did not choose its targets at random. It came for civilizations that others feared, civilizations that refused to submit to any council or order in the Coalition archives. Humanity's name was on that list. Not for what it had done, but for what it could do. And Daniel understood then why the alien leader's voice on the first broadcast had been so calm. They were not here to negotiate or to rage. They were here to carry out what they believed was a necessary act of control before the Devourer arrived to make the decision for everyone. The irony was unbearable. They wanted to chain Earth to fight a thing that hunted the free and unchained in the strategy room, the screens filled with live feeds of the Devourer. Closing in, it blotted out stars as it came, its massive form turning slowly so that its central core, a glowing storm of shifting metal and pulsing light, faced directly toward Earth. Daniel had seen many battlefields, but nothing in his life had prepared him for the scale of this enemy. It was not a fleet you could outmaneuver. It was not an army you could outthink. It was the end of everything. If it reached the atmosphere, the alien ships began to fire great arcs of energy slamming into the Devourer's outer shell, each blast lighting the darkness like a sunrise. But the thing barely reacted. The attacks were like raindrops on stone. Daniel leaned forward over the console as the human defense grid came online, its operators waiting for his word, and for a moment he imagined ordering the shield to rise to full power, sealing Earth off from both the fleet and the shadow beyond. But if he did that, the Devourer would consume the aliens first, then come for Earth with nothing in between. The alien leader appeared again on the secure channel, not on every screen this time, but only for Daniel, the face shifting like molten crystal, the voice low and urgent. "We can win, but only if you trust me and betray your own people." Daniel did not answer. He only stared at the image, thinking of every soldier he had lost in wars against enemies who thought they were righteous, thinking of the cities he had seen rebuilt from rubble by people who refused to break. And now here was a choice that could decide not just the fate of his planet, but of every world in the path of that impossible shadow. And he knew there was no path through it that would leave him unchanged. The Devourer drew closer, its edges now, lit by the fire of alien weapons glancing off its hide, and Daniel thought of one terrible possibility that no one in the room was speaking aloud. Maybe the Devourer could not be stopped at all. Maybe all they could do was decide who it destroyed first. The first strike from Earth came not from the skies, but from deep under the deserts and mountains, where the Aegis defense grid had slept for decades, a secret built in shadows after the first alien contact, long before the world knew the truth. Giant towers hidden beneath camouflage panels rose from the ground, their surfaces humming with blue light that lanced upward into the dark, and when it touched the alien fleet, the air itself cracked with the force. The first row of enemy ships flickered and fell their shields, failing under the impact, and for the first time since they arrived, the aliens moved with panic, their perfect formation breaking apart as they scrambled to avoid the next volley. Daniel stood at the center of the command room, his voice calm but sharp as he ordered the grid to full power. Every strike hitting with precision, learned from years of preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The world watched from rooftops and windows as the sky lit up, with fire and alien metal rained down in streaks across the horizon. The alien fleet had expected Earth to fight, but not with weapons like this. The Aegis grid was not human in origin, at least not entirely. It was born from salvaged tech from the first crashed ship decades ago, rebuilt with human creativity and stubbornness into something no coalition engineer had imagined. Daniel had pushed for its completion, even when leaders argued it was too expensive, too dangerous, and now as alien. Warships fell burning toward the ocean. He knew every argument had been worth it, but even in victory there was no time to celebrate, because beyond the chaos of the fleet, the Devourer still moved closer, its massive shadow now dwarfing the battlefield. The alien leader appeared again, not in rage but with urgency, warning that the grid's power would draw the Devourer faster. And when Daniel looked at the scans, he saw it was true. The creature's slow, deliberate motion had shifted into a steady approach, its surface rippling with strange pulses like deep ocean currents. The alien commander, who had sent the private message earlier, contacted him once more. This time with a plan. She said there was a way to wound the Devourer, but it would require lowering the planetary shield for a short time to open a line of fire from the combined fleets. Daniel knew what she was really asking. Trust the same armada that had come to enslave Earth and give them a shot at protecting it. The president's voice came over the secure channel demanding an answer. The military council argued in shouts, half of them calling it a trap, the other half saying it was the only way. As they spoke, the command center shook with the shock waves of alien weapons. Detonating against the grid, Daniel stared at the live feed from orbit, the alien fleet bleeding ships, but still holding position against the impossible shadow. He thought of the whisper from the prisoner about coming to stop something worse, and the truth that had been growing in his mind since the moment he saw the Devourer. If they did nothing, it would not matter who was free or enslaved, because nothing would be left. The choice was not between trust and betrayal. Now it was between survival and extinction. He gave the order to prepare the shield for a controlled drop, but only in the sector aligned with the aliens' firing corridor, and only for 90 seconds, no more. The alien commander agreed, her voice steady as she promised that, if they failed, she would withdraw her ships, and Earth could do what it wished in the final moments before the shield opened. Daniel walked to the viewport and looked at the sky. The alien ships still moving in strange, disciplined arcs. The Devourers, vast form blotting out the stars behind them. He had fought wars where he could see the faces of his enemies, and this was nothing like that. This was standing in the dark with a storm rolling toward you, too vast to run from, too deep to see. The end of the timer counted down. The shield flared and dropped in a section above the Pacific, and in that gap, the alien fleet unleashed a barrage so massive it turned the night-to-day beams of energy the size of skyscrapers tearing into the Devourers. Shell, the sound rolled over the planet like thunder from another world, and for a moment Daniel thought maybe they could do it. But then the Devourer screamed a sound without words that rattled the bones of every living thing on Earth, and its surface began to open like a wound, revealing not darkness, but a deeper, brighter storm within, something alive and aware and very, very angry. The scream of the devourer rolled through space and into the bones of every human and alien who heard it, a vibration more than a sound, a deep tearing that made instruments glitch and blood run cold. The alien barrage had cut through part of its shell, exposing a swirling mass of shifting metal and energy inside like a storm trapped in a sphere. But instead of falling back, the devourer pushed forward faster than before. Its movement suddenly sharp and aggressive, the alien fleet scrambled to regroup. But the shock wave from its lunge sent ships tumbling like leaves in a hurricane. Daniel gripped the railing in the command center as the feed from orbital satellites flashed with images of ships breaking apart and vanishing into the creature's core. The alien commander came over the private channel, her voice harsh with urgency, saying that this was the only chance they would ever get. The wound was open, but it would close soon. They had to strike from the inside where the core was vulnerable. Daniel understood immediately what she meant. A boarding operation. A suicide run into something the size of a moon with defenses no one had ever seen. He asked for volunteers, and the reply came not only from human soldiers, but from alien crews whose homeworlds had already been taken by the devourer, voices raw. With the same mix of fear and fury that burned in him, they assembled in orbit above the Pacific, a fleet unlike any in history, human gunships flying in formation. With sleek alien craft, each bristling with weapons and carrying strike teams loaded with explosives powerful enough to vaporize cities, the president tried to stop him, reminding him that Earth still needed him alive. But Daniel had stopped thinking. About survival hours ago, he was thinking about what would be left if they did nothing, as the fleet launched toward the devourer. He watched through the viewport as the scale of it grew until it filled the entire forward view. The wound in its shell glowed with violent light like a living storm, and as they crossed into its shadow, the sunlight died, leaving only the pulsing glow ahead. The first defense came without warning, shards of black metal breaking off from the creature and moving like guided missiles, each one tearing through shields and hulls in seconds. The human and alien ships fired back beams and missiles, shredding the swarm. But every second they lost more craft. Daniel's gunship dodged between two massive fragments and burst into the open void just meters from the glowing wound. And for a moment, he felt like he was flying into the heart of a dying sun. The light turned the inside of the cockpit white, and the sound was gone, replaced by a heavy pressure that felt like it was pressing through his skin into his skull. They broke through into a cavern so vast it was impossible to tell if it was metal or bone. The walls pulsed with light and the air shimmered with heat. Inside, the devourer was not empty. It was alive, a labyrinth of moving structures and massive tendrils that lashed out at anything that moved. Daniel's team moved fast, planting the charges while alien fighters provided cover. But the deeper they went, the more the devourer reacted, the floor shifting beneath them, the walls sealing passages behind them, as if the creature itself was trying to trap them. Daniel kept moving his mind, focused on the countdown in his helmet display, when they reached the core. He saw it clearly for the first time, a sphere of light so bright it hurt to look at, suspended in a cage of black spines. Each one dripping with liquid fire. The alien commander's voice crackled through the comm, telling him to place the charges there, that one blow might be enough to cripple it. As they armed the last detonator, the devourer struck a tendril, smashing through the platform and sending two of his soldiers spinning into the air. Daniel grabbed the detonator and slammed it into place, shouting for the fleet to pull back. The evacuation was chaos, ships peeling away under constant attack. The wound in the devourer's shell already beginning to close as if it were healing itself. Daniel's gunship burst free of the glow just as the charges went off, and the explosion ripped through the creature's sidelight, spilling into space in a blinding wave. The scream came again, but weaker this time, fractured and fading. The devourer reeled, its massive body turning away from Earth as if retreating. But Daniel knew it was not dead, only wounded, and that it would return. The alien commander confirmed what he already feared. They had bought time, not victory, and now they had to decide what to do with it. The light from the explosions still burned. In Daniel's eyes, as his gunship cut back toward the planet, the alien fleet scattered around him like shards of a broken shield. Many of their ships crippled, others drifting powerless. While fires tore through their hulls below them, Earth turned. Slowly untouched by the battle, but still under the shadow of everything that had just happened, the Devourer was gone from sight, its massive form retreating into the deep black trailing fragments of itself that burned like falling stars in the vacuum. Yet Daniel knew it was only moving away to heal, to watch and to wait. The alien commander's voice came across the comm, her tone heavy, not with victory but with the weight of too much loss. She said the coalition worlds would owe Earth, a debt they could never repay. And for the first time there was no hint of authority or superiority in her words, only something close to respect. But respect was not enough, because Daniel knew what came next without an alliance, without shared technology. Without a plan, the Devourer would return stronger than before, and the next time there might be no wound to exploit, he landed at Fort Orion to find the world's leaders waiting, their faces pale from watching the battle play out over every screen. On the planet, the president asked if the threat was gone, and he told her the truth, that it was not gone and never would be until it was destroyed entirely. The council erupted in arguments, some calling for isolation to rebuild, others calling for an immediate hunt to track the creature across the stars. But what surprised Daniel most was when the alien commander walked into the room flanked by guards, unarmed and uninvited, and declared that the coalition would now stand under Earth's leadership because they had seen in battle what they had feared in theory, humanity's refusal to break even in the face of something no sane mind could fight. The chamber fell silent at her words. The alien council had spent centuries ruling through fear and control, but fear had failed, and control had shattered in the fire over Earth. Daniel stepped forward and told them that there would be no chains, not for Earth, and not for any world that chose to stand with them. That if they wanted safety, they would have to earn it side by side in open alliance, not as masters and servants, but as equals. The alien commander agreed, and one by one the human leaders realized the scale of what was being offered, the coalition's technology, their fleets, their star charts all placed in human hands, not because they were conquered, but because they had proven themselves the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Not in numbers, not in weapons, but in will news of the alliance spread across both human and alien networks, in hours footage of the battle showing human and alien ships fighting together against the Devourer became a rallying cry on worlds Daniel had never heard of before, and the fear that had once united the galaxy against humanity began to turn into something different, something sharper. The Devourer was still out there, and every being who had seen it knew that their survival depended on preparing for its return. Earth became the center of that preparation. Fleets rebuilt, with human designs, weapons upgraded using both alien precision and human improvisation training programs that turned soldiers from a dozen species into one fighting force. Daniel watched it all from the command deck of the first human flagship, ever to leave the solar system, its hull gleaming with the markings of both Earth and its new allies. And though he knew the war ahead would be long and brutal, he also knew they had done something no one in the galaxy believed possible. They had taken a moment of certain defeat and turned it into the beginning of a new order, one where humanity was not hunted or chained, but leading the charge. The day came when the fleet set course to track the Devourer into the uncharted dark. The stars, stretching ahead like a field of fire, and Daniel stood at the viewport, his reflection faint in the glass, his voice low as he spoke to no one in particular. We will not run, we will not kneel, and when it comes again, we will be ready. And somewhere, far ahead in the void, the Devourer moved through the silence, unaware that for the first time in its endless existence, something was coming for it.